You are on air, Chair.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Economy Residents Community Scrutiny Committee today, Tuesday, the 27th of January. And I'm Councillor Angela Davis, your chair for this meeting. I've got my vice chair, Councillor Gary Mitchell, and members of the committee with me here today. We've also got a number of officers, portfolio holders, and cabinet members. So welcome everybody to this meeting. So item one on our agenda today is any apologies, please.
Good morning, Chair. You have an apologies from Councillor Sandra Davis.
Thank you very much. And item two is any declarations of interest. So this is to receive any disclosures of interest by members relating to items to be considered at the meeting today. I wouldn't expect there to be any declarations, but we'll just check, and there's no show of hands, so we'll take that as a no, thank you. And again, declarations of party whips to receive disclosures of prohibited party whips to which a member has been given in relation to this meeting in accordance to section 78.3 of the Local Government Measure 2011. Again, I wouldn't expect there to be, but we'll just give a second if anybody would like to show a hand. And that again is a no. So on to item number 4, which is minutes of our previous meeting. And that's the meeting from the 17th of December. So members, this is page 5 to 8 of your pack. So to check if you're happy with these as a record of that meeting, and if there are any matters arising that you'd like to bring up in relation to that. So all quiet. So can I have somebody to put these forward and a seconder, please? Members of the committee. Anybody happy to propose? Yes, thank you, Councillor Gary. Propose and a show of hands from the committee, please. Are you all happy with those minutes? I can't see any hands up. Can you, Gemma? Committee members, could I ask you if you could
Councillor Gary's got his hand up.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, Councillor Gary and Councillor Shan, thank you for seconding. So committee members, could I ask you to have your cameras on, please, so that we can see if you're showing your hands. Okay, is that all right, Gemma?
That's grand, thank you, yes.
That's lovely, thank you very much. Okay, so item 5 is our scrutiny recommendations from our previous meeting. So here we are on page 9 to 12, and these are the responses to our recommendations. So members, any comments or questions regarding those? Got no hands up. Are we happy with those responses? Yep, okay, lovely. We do still have some recommendations slightly outstanding, but I'm hoping we'll scoop those up in the next meeting and we'll bring those before you. So our main agenda item today is the budget plans we've got. We've got quite a substantial pack of papers. So moving on to section 6, to scrutinise the draft medium-term financial strategy for 26 to 31 and the draft 26 to 27 budget and capital programme. And I think that Councillor David Thomas, are you going to do an overall introduction for us, and then we're going to work our way through the pack? I believe there's a presentation for us.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you've rightly said, you know, it's a pretty bulky pack, this. You've actually got the medium-term financial strategy, 26 to 31, the FRM for 26 to 31, the draft revenue budget, the capital treasury management strategy. You've also got papers in the pack which highlight the cost pressures, cost reductions, the fees and charges registers there, and the impact assessment, the overarching impact assessment. You will already have seen the impact assessment and the cost reductions. I'm not sure whether the capital programme went to the scrutiny committees. I don't remember. I know it went to finance panel. But putting that aside, as far as today's concerned, obviously, the main purpose for the committee is to look at the areas that are relevant to the committee. And for that purpose, we've developed a presentation, a number of slides, which will be presented by the portfolio holders, accompanied by their heads of service, and they'll go through the detail of each service that's relevant to the committee. But you've also got the full budget report. I don't want to go through the whole report because it will take up about 20-25 minutes. There would be a recording available to what I said to Cabinet last Tuesday. But generally speaking, the first part of the report refers to the economic climate on a national basis that we're working within. And the second part refers to Welsh Government, the Welsh Government settlement, and the different pressures that obviously are facing Welsh Government with regard to setting their budgets. So as a brief introduction, Chair, I'll just start with the 26-27 net budget requirement, which is really what we're here for today, as an introduction, and then we'll move on to the actual presentation. So the proposed draft net budget for 26-27 is £390.5 million. It supports inflationary and additional service cost pressures of over £35 million, as detailed in Appendix F of the report. The budget plan proposes to remove £12.3 million of savings from our budget next year, and these are detailed in Appendix C. In line with our sustainable powers principles, these reductions are focused on delivering services that are more efficient or that can be delivered at a reduced cost. Alternative sources of income and increased fees and charges have also been implemented. This limits the impact on the delivery of frontline services as much as possible within the financial constraints. This includes the impact of the 2025 triennial actuarial review of the Powys Pension Fund. The Powys Pension Fund is now in a surplus position, allowing employers within the fund to reduce the additional contributions they've been making while the pension fund was in a deficit. This is estimated to reduce Powys County Council's pension contribution by £6 million per annum for 26-27 onwards. It's important to note that this will not impact on the pension benefits of current or former employees in any way. I'll now look at council tax. Proposing a 4.9% increase in council tax for 26-27 provides £5.66 million to bridge the gap. In proposing this increase, there's again been careful consideration to affordability for Powys residents. Together with the ongoing need to meet increasing demand and inescapable cost pressures on vital local services upon which they rely. The full assessment is provided in the detailed impact assessment which supports this report. More than 53% of our residents will receive support to meet their council tax bills from exemptions and discounts and through eligibility for the council tax reduction scheme, which totals over £13 million for 26-27. The setting of council tax is not subject to approval as part of this report, as this is a matter for full council determination. However, the report recommends the level of council tax to be included in the budget that goes to full council on the 26th of February 2025. On the 5th of March, full council meets again to set the council tax in line with the final approved budget. This meeting does not reopen the budget, but ensures the council sets council tax for billing purposes. We'll just look briefly at the capital and treasury management strategies, which are fundamental to the effective delivery of the council's priorities and vision. The draft strategy document at Appendix H provides a high-level long-term overview of how capital expenditure, capital financing and treasury management activity contribute to the provision of services, whilst considering the risks, how these will be managed, and the implications for future financial sustainability. The capital strategy sets out the priorities for the next 5 years, with a provisional capital programme totalling £742 million, including the housing revenue accounts. This is a significant commitment. A draft treasury management strategy is included with Appendix H, and it sets out how the council will ensure that it has enough funding available to fund its revenue and capital requirements. If we look briefly at reserves, the council reserves are key to our financial planning. Maintaining these at an appropriate level is central to our financial resilience and sustainability. They provide a safeguard against risk, unusual events, and future financial pressures. In assessing the appropriate level of reserves, the authority will ensure that the reserves are not only adequate, but also necessary and will be appropriate for the risk, both internal and external, to which it is exposed. In the context of the need to maintain financial stability and flexibility moving forward, on the advice of the Section 151 officer, it's Cabinet's intention not to make any planned use of the General Reserve Fund for the 26-27 budget. And finally, Chair, the revenue and capital budgets proposed today set out the financial resources within which the Council service must operate during 25-26. Both budgets are aligned and ensure that our limited resources are prioritised to secure outcomes for our communities. So that's my introduction to the budget for 26-27, Chair. I think we can now, unless there are any immediate questions with regard to that high-level overview. But if not, we can move on to the actual presentation we've prepared for you.
Yeah, that would be really useful, David. So I think if we could take each section individually and then have questions at the end, that might be a way to manage it well. So if officers are happy with that. So who have we got first? So in our presentation pack, are you going to share your screen or shall we work our way through the pack? How would suit you best? I think the presentation's on page 89 onwards, isn't it?
Is there one of the finance officers who can share their screen?
That might be better, so we're all on the same page at the same time. Yeah, thank you, David.
There we are. Yeah, James has shared it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, James. Thank you. So if we work through them in order, there we are. Lovely. Thank you, James. So I think we start. If you go on another, there we are. So highways, who's going to present this to us?
I think that's me, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Jackie.
Thank you.
Well
and I'm first in a long line here, I think, but I think you'll find that all the slides are very consistent. So hopefully you'll be able to run through them and understand where we are and ask meaningful questions at the end of it. So to start off with highways, transport and recycling. We had a base budget for 25-26 of 36,839,000, and we're proposing the draft budget request of 39,635 for 26-27. So you'll see where the in-year changes are. So there were inflationary pressures of just over 1.3 million. And service pressures, which is where the biggest increase is being seen for next year's budget of 2,979,000. And we have a small amount of undelivered savings. And on the next slide, we go through the proposed savings for next year. I think if I could go on to the next slide, please. Which is the proposed or the service pressures and the proposed savings. And what I would like to do is just sort of, instead of reading them out in the list, is just to go through where some of the pressures are. So the key challenges really are rising transport contract costs. You'll see that the school mainstream retendering as an extra cost of 601,000. But I would like to draw your attention as well to ALN transport retendering, which is 346,000. We also have the Sustainable Powers public transport changes of 1.8, just over 1.8 million as a pressure, and inflation on materials, contractors, fuel of 470,000, and also agency staffing of 8,000. There are, as I said, undelivered savings of 242,000 and income below assumptions in car parks, waste, streetworks and design of 250,000. So what we're proposing to use as solutions here, so proposed savings, is use of Welsh Government Regional Transport grant of 695,000 to help us with those transport pressures. the extended producer's responsibility, or EPR in short, of 300,000, which will offset household waste recycling centre costs and also support recycling infrastructure without new council investment. Income realignment to actual recovery levels is another area where we were putting in proposed solutions here. So a car park income increase of 200,000, waste and recycling 184,000, street works 150,000, and highway designs of 100,000. So the reason why we're doing this is to correct the unrealistic historic income assumptions, to bring budgets in line with real performance, and to reduce the structural financial gaps. There are also some operational efficiencies, which you will see there as well, which include street lighting, trade waste price increases, reviewing of the free car parks. We have a lot of free car parks in Powys, and the reason for doing that is to reduce energy and operational costs, modernise service delivery, and increase fairness and cost recovery. Finally, we've got service redesign and digital transformation. The reasons for doing that is to streamline processes and improve efficiency, reduce long-term staffing and administrative pressures, and support delivery of previously undelivered savings. So that's all I wanted to say, Chair. Thank you very much. You will see in front of you or in your packs all the different areas and the different cost savings and pressures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackie. So, members of the committee, open to your questions on HTR, please. So, just if I could ask you to take the presentation down just for while we do this, just so I can see the hands up. That's great. Thank you. So, no questions, members? I find that quite hard to believe. Councillor Peter James. Good morning, Peter.
Morning, Chair. It's really to do with recycling and waste, really. With so many lost collections, is there any sort of refund to especially trade waste? I know that there's going to be an increase in pricing, but there is a little bit of feeling that you know, there is lost collections not picked up, and I'm just wondering, with lost collections, is there any price increase for staffing to go around and pick up extra collections? I don't know how that works out.
So missed collections, is it, Councillor Peter?
Yeah,
when they're missed, yeah. Councillor.
I don't know if that can be answered.
I'm happy to step in there, Chair.
Yeah, please do, John. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Peter, yeah, it's unfortunate that we've had a number of factors. I mean, some of the issues have been around driver availability and driver shortage. Through the EPR funding, we are now looking to increase headcount in the waste and recycling service to provide extra service resilience. So hopefully going forward, we're purchasing extra vehicles and recruiting extra staff to provide that to provide that service resilience. So the service should should function reliably. I think in our Q3 performance, our missed collections was something like 0.12%. So whilst it's really inconvenient, we're not, it's quite a small proportion, but something we will continue to work on with the use of the EPR grant.
Okay, John, can I just come in, if you don't mind, Peter? I just want to check on that. So, John, does that include residential and the business collections? Because I think Councillor Peter was referring the business sort of collection. They pay a fee, don't they? And they feel a bit aggrieved when they're missed.
Yeah, if that will be across the service area. So for the extra staff, whether they drive the trade waste vehicles or whatever, it's about providing that extra service resilience. And there have been, we've had quite a few storm events recently, which have impacted upon service delivery as well. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, but we are trying to take steps to improve service resilience.
Okay, Peter.
And just carrying on that then, with the price increase for trade, are we sort of in line with other providers with that increase?
We do some benchmarking. It's a service we have to provide. We are effectively the collector of last resort. It would be, in terms of trade waste, the price increases are in line with inflation. And we don't look to compete with our external providers, if that makes sense. So realistically, the market should be collecting trade waste. We do it where we fill the gap where the market doesn't provide that service.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Peter. Councillor Adrian.
Sorry, Chair, could I just
Yes,
come back in quickly
sorry.
to answer to Councillor Peter as well? Is just to make it absolutely clear, we're not allowed to make a profit on any of the services that we provide. So it's a cost recovery level that we charge, and that is why it's just inflationary prices or inflationary increases we put in. But we don't make a profit, we're not allowed to.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Adrian. Sorry, Adrian.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. My question is about the level of grant funding for HTR. We get this annually. There's one mentioned there about the school transport, I think, and also we got the maintenance grants. I take it it's not extra money, it's replacing part of the budget. So is there a risk for the future of sustainable powers if these grants aren't forthcoming, that the budget for HDR will technically be reduced? Because it's quite a level of grant funding every year, really. And you want to comment on it, or just take that as my thoughts?
Happy to respond, Chair.
Yeah, please do, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. It's a really good question. Until we get a grant offer letter, there's never any certainty that we're going to get a grant. Grant income is factored into it. I think off the top of my head, there's around about £11 million of revenue grant income coming into HTR. In addition to that, there's other external grants we receive, like the Levelling Up Fund. We've had local government borough initiative grant funding, which has all gone into highways. We are reliant fairly quite high on external grant income. It's always a risk. We know that there's changes to how grants are being administered in Welsh Government and how that will flow through into the local authorities on a more regional basis. The positive news is that the indication thus far is that we will get a fairly significant grant increase for our transport grants from Welsh Government for next year. We're still waiting final confirmation, but for the region of Mid Wales, Powys and Ceredigion, that's looking at around about £12.8 million has been the indicative allocation so far.
Okay, thank you. My concern is about road maintenance, especially because that could take a hit, couldn't it? But maybe I will see what comes out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Adrian. Councillor Pete Lewington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted one point of clarity and then my question, if I may. I think the portfolio holder said just now that we don't make a profit on services. So I just wanted to understand or seek a bit of clarity on that comment in relation to car parking, where I know we do make a profit. What my question was, though, Chair, is I wanted to understand or try to understand the confidence that there is around delivering these savings that we've just seen. So I guess which of the savings proposals that have been put forward there carry the highest risk of non-delivery? And are there any alternative mitigations in place in case they fail? And then I guess on an ongoing basis, are we monitoring this monthly? And what escalation routes exist if the savings are at risk of not being achieved? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So Councillor Jackie, did you want to come back and clarify?
Could I ask Jane Thomas just to clarify exactly how we use the money that comes in and why it's not called a profit?
Yeah, Jane. She's here somewhere. Oh, good morning, Jane. Welcome. We're not hearing you, Jane, but it doesn't look like.
Can you not hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can now.
Okay, I know my headphones don't seem to be working, so apologies, Chair. Yeah, I mean, all the money that we raise through fees and charges, we look to deliver on full cost recovery wherever we can. And we're obviously having to keep abreast with inflation in terms of those fees and charges. All of the fees and charges then feature as part of the overall council budget. So we have a zero bottom line in terms of the budget after we've received income, grants, council tax and Welsh Government settlement. So all of those fees and charges contribute to the overall budget plan. Full cost recovery is our principle in terms of everything that we do. So no, we don't generate a profit. In terms of the full cost, we are supporting the whole council remit. So in terms of that full cost recovery, that would cover all elements such as admin of those fees and charges and some of the corporate services that obviously contribute towards that. So that's what happens with fees and charges when we collect them.
Okay, Councillor Peter. You happy with that response?
I'm not sure, Chair. Sorry, maybe you being a bit thick, but I'm not sure I totally understood that. So I guess simplistically for me, we do make a profit or an over recovery on car parking, but are we saying that just goes into an overall pot and it's not really turned to be profit?
Jane, do you want to just clarify that for us again?
I can see John's got his hand up, so he will know probably those fees and charges a little better than me.
Come on, John.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. In terms of the full cost recovery, for example, where we are providing a service that the private sector can run, we'll use Trade Grace as an example, we should not be competing with that service, therefore we can't make a profit. So we just apply whatever it costs to run that service, that's what we charge out. There's no profit on that particular service. It's all about providing the service at what it costs us to provide it. There will be inflationary increases because everything's gone up, transport costs have gone up, staffing, etc. I suppose for the fees and charges for car parks, if £2 million comes in to the council from car parking, that money gets used to offset other costs within the council, if that makes sense. I guess it goes back into the whole pot. I think that's what Jane was trying to say, but I'm no Section 151 officer, so that's kind of how we use that revenue in HTR.
Yeah. So in Jackie's reference, she was referencing the service delivery that we have, and we don't make a profit on those services. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Peter. Okay, Councillor Gary.
Yeah, I didn't know if James wanted to come in on that specific point or not, seeing he's got his hand up now.
James, did you have a matter?
Yeah, with the car park, and of course the revenue budget only sees the costs and income incurred or received in that year. What the revenue budget doesn't have is the costs of resurfacing and things like that. That's picked up in the capital budget. So whilst there'll be a surplus in year, obviously at some point in time those car parks need resurfacing, relining, or obviously new machines or whichever need doing. So that isn't in the revenue budget. So it will show a surplus there, but over time, probably not the surplus that you see in the revenue budget.
Okay. Councillor Pete Lewington, you've put your hand back up. Did you want to come?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I may have distracted folk with the question on the car parking. I didn't get an answer to the questions around which of those savings proposals are the highest risk of non-delivery, and what alternative mitigations exist if they do fail.
Okay.
Would
like to...
I can pick
John?
that.
Yeah, please, John.
So we tried very much to, you'll see in the savings proposals, around aligning our income levels to actuals. So we know that highways design, for example, does overachieve on its income. So that's about, rather than putting service cuts in, it's about achieving those income levels. So there is risk with it. Again, with, for example, if we use car parks again, income does tend to go up and down year on year. So there is risk around it. We do monitor it on a quarterly basis. And so that's why there has been that we put in what we feel is a realistic target for all our income targets. I suppose there's always risk, as I mentioned, around grant funding. We're fairly comfortable this year that we'll get the allocations that we've suggested in the budget. So it's just a case of, as you say, you know, we monitor our savings and our income and grant expenditure on a quarterly basis and report it through our quarterly performance.
Okay, Peter, camera's off, so
Yeah,
I can't
sorry.
see if
Yeah,
you're
no,
nodding
thank
or...
you, Chair. Yeah, struggling a bit with the internet again, but yes, no, thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, Councillor Gary.
Thanks, Chair. Mine's sort of following on a bit from Adrian's question, I suppose, and picking up on one of the specific ones. So, and it overlaps with the sort of cost reduction slide that I know is sort of at the end of the pack, but obviously was highlighted in the overhead ones of these ones. Take, for example, the regional transport grant from Welsh Government. It's a large chunk of money, £695,000 in year budget support if that comes in, but it's marked as amber on the sort of risk register, if you like, of proposed savings. Yet it's a massive chunk of the proposed savings we know we need to make. So I guess my question, it does relate to that risk around grants that we understand is always there until they've signed. You don't definitely know it's coming in. But we've obviously marked that one as amber, so that gives me the impression there's a bit more risk around that. Otherwise, if we were very comfortable it was coming in, it'd be green and we know it's coming in. Bearing in mind that we're not that many months away from next financial year, when do you as a service team expect to know that the level of that grant, and if it is at that level or reduced, or does it disappear? Give us a sort of an assumption of when you hope to have that confirmation in your head. And obviously if it doesn't come in, then that's a significant pressure across those savings.
Okay, who would like to come
Perhaps
back?
one between John and or Jackie. I don't know if
Yeah.
those could be there.
Sorry, can you just repeat that question?
It was just about the regional transport grant that we've got as an estimation in there coming in, and it's a significant part of our savings, isn't it? 695,000 it's in there as, but it's marked as amber on the rating of the proposed savings. So that gives me a concern that it's not a given, it's not a definite that that's going to come in, but it's a big part of your services proposed savings. Have you got, I don't know, when will you know, I guess is one question. And is there a risk it doesn't come in at all, or might it be reduced?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a risk it could be reduced. We are fairly comfortable that we will get the regional transport this funding, the RTP funding. It's been, the initial allocation was 12.8 million, as been indicated by Welsh Government. We are waiting for final confirmation. That will be later, so I can say later this month. It's going to be early into February. Of course, it's Welsh Government budgets are being set, so we'll have much better clarity on this, but hopefully before the end of February for sure.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a chance, I guess, to do some small revisions if needed. If it's reduced by 1% or 2%, you'll as a service team have that additional pressure in your budgets.
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jackie, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, just to say that an awful lot of work has been done on the regional transport plan, and the Minister has accepted that it's a good plan, so we're fairly confident about that. The only issue that we have now is the CJC will be monitoring, or they will be in charge of this fund as we go forward between ourselves and Ceredigion. We do work collaboratively together. We've worked very hard on this regional transport plan, and I have a level of confidence, but I don't think you can be confident until you know that that money's coming through. But I do know that an awful lot of work has been going on in the background to explain what the importance of this grant to Powys County Council.
Thank you, Councillor Jackie. Councillor Corinna.
Thanks very much. I was just going to look at the service redesign. Does that mean a vacant post is going to be unfilled, 52,000 saved? And then I was wondering about the sustainable travel reconfiguration of sustainable travel staffing. Thank you.
Happy to pick that up, Chair.
Yeah, please do, John.
So yeah, service redesign is around about our digital journey, our digital transformation journey, trying to make things more efficient. We're doing a load of work and trialing using timesheets, using more digital technology to manage and manage our staffing. So it will be around freeing up more resource in that area as we sort of move towards a more digital platform. And then, sorry, the other bit was around the sustainable travel officer. We had two. We had a sustainable travel officer, then we had an electric vehicle officer, and the one person has since resigned. So we're putting those two positions into one, hence creating that saving.
Thanks very much. So with the digital, you can log in and log out and then reallocate staff easier, or?
Yeah, there's a number of systems that we've been using, but we haven't been getting the full potential of them. It's systems called AMX, which the highways guys use, and Bartek, which waste and recycling. But probably one of the biggest areas we think is going to be just around timesheets. Currently, staff fill in paper timesheets, which go into, sorry, the frontline operational staff fill in timesheets, which then go into the office. Somebody re-enters that into the system. That's the bit we're concentrating on at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So I think we're all aware that, you know, budgets are a very difficult balance of making the pennies spread where you went to spend them. And HTR is one of those public facing services, probably the one that I get most contacts directly from the residents. So really, just can you give us some reassurance that you have really considered those indirect wider impacts of the decisions that you make? So, for example, we've had car parking mentioned here and potential for the fees to go up. The impact if people start parking in residential areas, for example, or within the streetlights where we've made changes to make that more efficient, more dark sky compliant, more environmentally friendly, all really positive things. But the indirect consequence if people are frightened of going out or if they're a dark area. So it'd just be really nice to know that you have given really due consideration to those indirect and perhaps unthought of consequences, and how you plan for that, I suppose, really. Yeah, Jackie, Councillor Jackie.
This is more of an issue about how we're delivering our services rather than an operational question. I'm assuming, is that what you're saying, Councillor Angela?
Yes, I suppose it applies to every department, doesn't it, and every budget line, but specifically to HTR because that service is so public facing, isn't it?
It is, and I absolutely agree with you. And this is an area that we do work tirelessly on to make sure that we're delivering the service. Obviously, there are gaps, and as John has already said, that over the Christmas period, we didn't just have problems with staffing, but we also had bad weather as well. So that did impact on our delivery or our collection of recycling bins. But I do know that the service goes that extra mile to make sure that they can go back and collect where they haven't been able to collect. There isn't a huge impact on the budget, I would say, around bins. We do have the extended producers responsibility money, which is now part of that service, and that has enabled us to actually make savings where we haven't been able to make them before, and also look at ways that we can improve the service. And that's what the EPR is all about, is improving the services. One of the things that we are doing, and you will be getting information fairly soon, is there is a route optimization strategy for our recycling collections, and we're hoping that that will actually help us to improve the service. Lots of other things behind that as well, but that's one of the main areas that we look at. I also understand as well that lighting it is a concern for people when they see any changes, but what we have been able to do with the new lighting strategy that we've got in place and the LEDs, not only does it cut down on our carbon emissions, it saves us a huge amount of money, which you will see in the savings, but also we've been able to turn lights on that were turned off in 2008. So we've actually been able to improve that. But I do understand that when these new lights come in, there is a change, and we do know that residents do find it quite difficult. But we do have a system where we can go in and change the light density coming from those individual lights, and we're always open to any concerns that people have, and I believe we actually deal with that very quickly and very efficiently. So I hope that helps.
That does. Thank you, Councillor Jackie. It's good to have that reassurance. You know, it's obviously difficult to mitigate for the unknown, isn't it? But that those things are being thought about. So thank you for that. Okay, if members are happy, we'll move on to the next section now, which is the planning and regulatory services. So who's going to lead on this for us? Is Gwilym?
Thank you, Chair.
Oh,
I think I am.
Lovely, thank you.
If that is all right, and obviously I've got Councillors Richard and Rafe in close support to assist with this. Now, this is clearly a much smaller budget than we've just been looking at, with the base budget of just over 9 million for 2025-26, and creeping up to 9.241 million in 2026-27, and it's one of the smallest increases that we'll see there amongst the budget proposals today. But nonetheless, a whole range of public-facing services in this area, planning and regulatory services that very often people either do see and have much to talk about in relation to planning, or services that they don't see that keep them healthy behind the scenes. But we've got a whole range of inflationary pressures here that we see, but only one specific service pressure, and that relates to the extension of the IDOC system. That's the computerized system, not only for planning, but in environmental health and across regulatory services. And the implementation of that is really quite intense at the moment, with good support coming from other areas within the council to ensure that this gets delivered. But there are some cost pressures associated with that. But you'll also see there's a whole package of savings identified here, which I'll give you a quick canter through, if I may. One of the larger areas is around catering income. We have had increases in financial support for school meals from the Welsh government, and that has meant that, subject to things being equal going forward, we'll be able to have some additional funding in there. But of course, we'll have to see what food cost pressures are going forward, because that might impact on that. We've got a identified disposal of the Gwalia office. That's now appeared in a couple of years. It's taken some time for us to shift, and there's a little bit of old text there around funding the library move. Those in Llanrindod will know that the library's already moved, but there are some residual services that we're still finalising the move and transference from the Gwalia this year. I'm hoping that we will have a positive sale to announce shortly, and of course this is relating to the revenue savings we anticipate about maintaining the building once it's not ours. Talked earlier about fee increases, and we are fortunate that after lobbying the Welsh Government, they have agreed to planning fee increases, again trying to make the service wash its own face in financial terms. So there will be some incremental increases in fees. Obviously, they're set by the Welsh Government, and the idea is that we move to full cost recovery. And you'll see a savings target there, which is actually reflective of the additional fee income rather than a direct saving. Under the next line there around renewable energy, we've invested significant amounts of grant funding into a range of our schools and corporate property, and you're starting to see there some of the savings that are coming as a result of that. every year we take a punt on the energy price reduction. We know where contracts are situated in relation to the bulk purchasing of gas and electricity costs, etc. And we think that there will be a reduction in the year that we've identified there. Building control is one of those areas where it cannot, by law, make a profit, but you will see that there's compensation for inflationary pressures in the fee earning work. So the fee earning area can recover costs to pay for the inflationary pressures there about wages, transport, etc. And then there are a number of fairly modest savings, as you see going through there, with some cost recovery and inflationary pressures offset elsewhere. And as I said, we're here to assist in answering any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. So if I could ask for oh, lovely, done. So members, your questions there for Councillor Jake or members of the team? Councillor Corinna.
Thanks, Chair. I just wondered, Jake, when the fees from Welsh Government, the increase of fees from Welsh Government will be fully realised, when the full scale of fees should be realised.
Yeah, so the slight issue we have here, Councillor Corinna, is whilst the fees will be implemented, so we've got an uplift in the fees, what we're not clear about is what the impact on planning applications pressures or numbers coming through. We did see a bit of a rush. Sorry, Councillor Church, I probably should have deferred to you on this. We did see a bit of a rush of applications coming in before the fee increase. We've now seen numbers decline and steady off. So it's one of these areas of the industry. We don't know until it settles down. There will be a settling down period. Sorry, Councillor Church, would you like to add anything to that?
No, only I think Corinna was asking when the fees were implemented. They came in, I think, back in November. And so as the leader has said, we saw an uplift in applications before the fees came in. They came in with very short notice, so it wasn't long for people to get their applications in, followed by a dip afterwards. But obviously we'll have to wait over the next few months before we know what the long-term pattern is.
Thanks very much. I thought Jake said it was an incremental levying of fees, that there are going to be rises. Have I got that wrong?
No, apologies. What I think you're seeing by way of the savings and therefore the income, we've identified £50,000 in the budget as an additional fee income. I think that I won't say it's conservative, because we don't know at the moment, because of how application levels against the fee rise will level off. So you might see that increasing again next year incrementally as the charge bites and applications don't fall away. So that's what I was trying to imply, not a tapered fee increase.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Corinna. Councillor Peter Lewington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick one on the 230,000 saving on renewables. I think if I understood the leader correctly there, that is now the costs to get us there were in previous years. So that is what our savings is going forwards. I just wonder, that's quite a big chunk of money. So I guess my question was, how have we estimated the 230? Is that like looking at last year's bill and having a punt on what we think this year's will be, and that's the figure. And therefore, I guess, depending on the science that's gone into that 230, what again is the mitigation plan in place if that doesn't materialise?
Thank you, Councillor Pete. And as you're talking about science and calculations, I am going to defer, I think, to Gwilym, who's here to help.
Thank you, Leader. We've got a history now of delivering solar and LED projects, so we know how much energy they generate generally within our buildings. So using that and using the projects that we had designed for our depots and our offices, we were confident that with the 1.4 million, I'm sorry, grant that we received, that we were able to secure the £230,000 savings. And progress has been positive with those proposals. You had seen a number of our depots and offices now with solar panels installed. To Brycheiniog in Welshpool, to Maldwyn, for example. They've recently done Kirkhamsfield and a number of other depots and offices around the council. So we are confident that they will be all in place come the next financial year, and we'll be able to secure the £230,000 savings.
Thanks, Graham.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gary Mitchell.
Thanks, Chair. Mine was around, firstly, I think well done for creating quite a small uplift requirement in the overall budgets. I know that's a real task for departments. Gwilym, I know you've got a big staff-based team as well, and got your own costs to do, so that's positive to see. I guess my question is around that risk assessment. You've got some service delivery redesign figures in your budget savings as well. I think planning is turning that corner, isn't it? That planning applications generally are moving through the system swifter and stuff. Possibly still some delays within the enforcement side of things, but I guess my risk is we've invested a bit in that process and those staffing teams, but your proposals show a potential risk to team numbers, if you like, and what then is that impact on planning as a service? And I know it's not just planning in your team, you've got that whole area to worry about, but under things like compliance around food safety and monitoring, we know that there's real pressures in that team being able to do the minimum required standards of delivery and stuff. So just, yeah, I guess, is that saving realistic? But if it is, it's that impact. And I know Sian's got that sort of general question of actually, what's the risk around moving towards the transformation that we're trying to see across the whole authority by these budget pressures, particularly? Does that mean you can't deliver what you need as a service element?
Chair, is that with myself
Yes,
or
Gwilym,
portfolio
please,
holders?
if you want to come back on that.
With regard to service redesign, the redesign is generally for future years in relation to staffing elements. So that will have to be carefully considered in any impact assessments, because as you said, that the functions that we're providing are statutory and need appropriate capacity to order to perform that function. But this year's savings, I believe that the risk assessment is appropriate, appropriately covers the savings there, and I don't think that there's any real high risk savings proposed for next year. The following years, as I said, will have to be carefully considered, and we're looking at plans now to manage those impacts, ICT development, for example, to add capacity to those service areas if they need redesign in the future, and also investment. Although we often say about savings, we are looking at investment now to make us more sustainable going forward as well. But definitely next few years we'll probably have to do individual impact assessments when we come to service redesign. Thank you, Chair.
Okay with that, Councillor Gary. So
Yep.
Basically what you're saying there is you're using your experience from the past to judge how this can be delivered, how the services can be delivered within the budget that you have. But I'm just wondering, do you look out of the county to how these services are delivered in other counties to sort of benchmark, are we doing things the best way that we can?
We do. We benchmark against other services from a cost perspective, and also looking at best practice.
Yeah.
There's there's a variety of different best practice around the country. Use of AI. Lots of authorities use it in different ways, and we'll have to look at them to make sure that we can do efficiencies. Then we're also working with partners to develop things such as alternative enforcement strategies for public protection. How do they do it? Can we do it consistently as well so that the regulators are supportive of those opportunities? So we are constantly doing that, and we need to continue in that vein, given the proposals or the savings that we have to achieve going forward.
Okay, oh, that's really good to hear, because we have heard in the past the challenges you've had meeting either the food hygiene or the planning and building control. So that's good to know that you're looking at other ways of delivery and giving yourself the confidence that you can deliver with these proposals. Councillor Jake, thank you, Gwilym.
Yeah, I just wanted to say there are a number of areas that actually where our regulatory services are leading the way. So not just reaching out and copying others, but leading the way. We were one of the councils that was leading the charge for the planning fee increase, for instance, and following the audit we had and the work that we did with that and the subsequent recognition of the great work that was going on within the development management and enforcement services in Powys. Others have been in touch to talk about that. The estate agency service in here is one that is led by Powys Council on behalf of others, and we'll see that elsewhere. So I think there are a number of good examples where building control is another one in terms of the review and the new models of working there, where the expertise here have been drawn on by other services. So I think there are some, we do have to look out, but do bear with us. Others are looking at what we're doing as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Jake. That's quite good to have that reassurance. Okay, so I've got no further hands up, so we'll move on to the next slide, and that's Housing General Fund. And I can see we've got Councillor Matthew, and who is with you, Councillor Matthew, to deliver this?
Morning, Chair. I've got Matt Perry, our Chief Officer, based with me, and we should have Mark Davis and Richard Batt also for any technical questions.
Lovely. Thank you. Over to you then, Councillor Matthew.
Thank you, Chair. So colleagues will know that the Housing General Fund covers our statutory duties in relation to housing services, not our landlord requirements. So this is excluding the management, repairs and maintenance of our over 5,000 council houses. It does deal with things like our responsibilities around housing support, housing advice and homelessness, where much of the pressure in the service comes from. We have just under £110,000 inflationary pressures in the service. Service pressures of £499,000 and proposed savings of £145,000 for the financial year. We aren't holding any items at risk currently, but there is, a need to be agile and responsive. Homelessness figures do fluctuate, and we do need to be able to respond to those when additional pressure comes in. You'll see in terms of the service pressures, Chair, that in response to the readjustment that we undertook between the housing revenue account and the general fund, that's created a pressure of £432,000. Cabinet took that decision off the back of a significant spike in homelessness cases we experienced after the COVID pandemic, and in relation to the effects of that. We've needed to respond to that, but that couldn't be funded from the housing revenue account, so we've needed to make that adjustment to be able to comply with legislation. And the Welsh Government are ending the local authority loans, town centre loans and property loans. That in turn reduces the income that the council receives, and that will leave a deficit which will need to be repaid of around £67,000. So that's been factored in as a service pressure. In terms of our proposed savings, there will be a service redesign that does affect staffing posts, but we are confident that duty can be fulfilled elsewhere within the county, although it does come with some risk. We're reducing the use of temporary accommodation in order to save £50,000, and have had some successes in doing this. The use of our emergency accommodation is down 27%. The use of our temporary accommodation is down 17%. And the number of our statutory homelessness cases are down 15%. That's not happened by accident. That's happened because there's been a trial within the service of a new triage system, absolutely focused at reducing homelessness. And there's also a new financial model that's been put in place that is looking at best value for placements. And you'll understand that bed and breakfast accommodation for temporary accommodation or emergency accommodation can cost in the region of £85 per night. So the service is working much more collaboratively with partner landlords and doing all it can to help prevent homelessness and stop the cost presenting, but also having better outcomes for the people of Powys. And the final one there in that list, Chair, is a reduction in utility costs of £15,000. And I'm assured by the service that these savings can be delivered on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Matthew. Yeah, thank you, James, taking that down. So members, over to the committee for your questions on Housing General Fund. All quiet. Everybody happy with that? I mean, Councillor Matthew, we know that we have housing come before scrutiny in its own right, and we hear a lot about the work that's going on there to support residents, really with the aim to be preventative, trying to sort of step in before residents get into trouble, and that is quite good news. But I can see here Councillor Shan has got her hand up, so thank you, Councillor Shan. You're on mute. Oh, there we are.
Yeah, trying to unmute. Sorry, Chair. Tech challenge. Thanks, Councillor Matthew. This was a question. All of my questions really are for all service areas. Rather, I didn't want to come in and out and ask the same question over and over again for each service area. But I will broadly ask it because you mentioned risk yourself, Councillor Matthew. And this is about the service redesign line that is present in just about every service area that is listed in the cost reductions list. There are three that don't include that as a savings proposal. Gwilym has ably answered my question already in terms of his service area, but broadly to all heads of service really, and we can come back into those who haven't yet spoken as part of the presentation. Can this committee be assured that the staff reductions, where there are staff reductions contained within that service redesign, and I do understand that's not always the case, but where there are staff reductions or potential staff reductions implicit there, are we able to be assured that the reduction in staff, if it happens, will not impact on residents or communities? The impact assessment is very clear that none of the savings proposals impact on residents and communities. But as I understand it, that's a direct impact, directly drawable cause and effect type impact that's been assessed there. There's a range of potential indirect impact, isn't there? And obviously, if staff teams are reduced, that might affect the service, and it might impact on residents and communities in various different ways. So I wondered, because you said, well, there is a risk, whether you would be able to expand on that and assure us that the impact on residents and communities is either not going to happen or has already been mitigated, and there are conversations in place about that.
Thanks, Councillor Cox. Chair, can I just respond briefly to that? Thanks.
Please do. Yes.
There is a risk to residents because our staff are our residents. They live in the county as well. So the decisions we're making about the future of the workforce affects the people who live in Powys directly and indirectly. In relation to the Housing General Fund, the service redesign is focused on areas of advice that are available from other agencies within the county. So there is some duplication in that we are providing something that is available elsewhere. However, for me, there is a question, and this is where the risk comes in that I alluded to. The question mark for me is the quality of the advice that's available elsewhere. Will it be as good as what we are providing, and the assurances that I'm able to gain from the housing management team about the quality of what we're delivering? So we need to ensure that where we're reducing services, the provision that's external is at least as good as what we're offering as a local authority.
So to add to that then, Councillor Matthew, because on the council's own website, the cost of living page on the hub page, it does have lots of links to other services, citizens advice or whatever. are we able to sort of offer some sort of reassurance that when we are directing out, that there's a link that these things work together? Is there any way we can do that within the service itself?
We can't be responsible for third-party providers, and there needs to be that disclaimer with flashing lights around it. We see all too often, don't we, where things go wrong for people when working with private contractors, etc. And there's been some examples of that. If you look at things like cavity wall insulation over the years. But we have really good relationships with the Citizens Advice Bureau. Councillor David Thomas and I meet with them regularly to discuss the volume of work that they've got, the themes of work that they've got, and the number of cases that they're dealing with. We do that because we want to offer support, and two, we want to use the evidence that they provide to be able to inform future decisions around how we make services and profile our resources to be able to deal with those issues. So we have really close working relationships with them. On the ground in the housing service, our officers, are directly linked with food banks, with 7Y Energy. They're working closely with these people on the front line each and every day. So the relationships with our partners is incredibly strong. It's those things that we need to develop to be able to deal with the challenges that we've got. But where those partners are delivering other services, they are responsible for the quality and the content. We don't have a service level agreement in that way with those agencies.
Okay, yeah, that does give some reassurance, and I'm certainly aware that as a council we work with housing associations, etc. So it's really good to know that you understand how important it is to maintain those relationships and work with them. Thank you for that. Members, any questions, any further questions there on the Housing General Fund? No, I think you seem to have got away quite easily with that, Councillor Matthew and Matt. So members must be happy with that. So thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next section, which is the economy and climate. Thank you, James. I'm saying thank you, James. I think it's James that's turning our slides for us. So thank you. And we've got Councillor Rafe Devlin here to introduce this for us. And Rafe, who have you got?
Unfortunately, you don't. Chair.
No, Councillor
You've got
Jackie.
Councillor Glynn.
It's Councillor Glynn. Apologies. I can't see you on my screen, Councillor Glynn.
No, that's quite all right, Chair. I'll be quite brief.
And if you want to introduce your officers who are here to support you as well, that would be good.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that Diane is on the call. I'll just talk briefly to the service pressures, which is and interestingly, sorry, the obviously planning policy sits with the leader, and so he might be able to give a little bit more narrative with regards to the LDP. But it's my understanding that we're moving on a slightly different time frame, which reflects some of the changes in the budget for the local development plan. But the budget will largely be the same. It's just about how it's apportioned across the timeline of the development of the LDP. Just by way of giving a bit of narrative to our contribution to the Mid Wales Growth Deal, we provide a small amount of revenue funding to the growth deal, as do our colleagues in Ceredigion, in order to give the growth deal a small revenue reserve, which is used to move some of the projects along, which is really critical when we're in this sort of critical phase of the delivery of the Mid Wales Growth Deal. I haven't got anything further to add there, Chair, but I'm really happy to field any questions.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Very brief, but to the point introduction there. So members of the committee, if you have any questions for Councillor Glynn or any member of the team, opportunity. So no, well, Diane, I'll just ask you if you could give us an update on what is happening with the Mid Wales Growth Deal, as that was mentioned across Powys. I know there are a couple of projects in the pipeline, and are they set to develop as planned, all on track?
Thank you, Chair. So we have one project that's in delivery. So that means that work is happening on the ground. So that's very close to your own heart and the
yes, indeed.
work is already underway there. And then the Centre for Alternative Technology have broken down their project into kind of smaller chunks, and they're just getting their final plans through to start delivery as well of new developments on their site, trying to bring that redevelop the Centre for Alternative Technology training site back into state of the art and innovative technology, bring it back to where it was many years ago. So those are in development, and then we have quite a few other business cases that are going on across the region, from a food technology site over in Ceredigion to supporting I think the other one is through trying to rack my brains now for ourselves. There's an advanced manufacturing skills development and wraparound project coming through to development, and then also the same in food technology. I said that one, sorry. There's also
it's all right, Diane, we're not testing you on your knowledge. We know there's been a press release. I'll let you off the hook there. There's been a lot in the press about the work that's been going on. I wasn't expecting you to reel off the specific projects, but just wondering, because we're talking about redesigning our staffing and departments and etc., and you've been very busy in your department bringing in events and activities to the county that are going to impact positively on our economy. Just really, your capacity as a team to be able to continue delivering these, and how optimistic you are that they're all going to come to fruition, really. So it was a general question and not a test today.
Yeah, I think all of these projects, obviously most of the capital projects, once they get approved, then you have revenue. You can capitalize some of your revenue costs for like project management and managing that project through. So you can actually be able to support more, and we will be drafting in extra support once any projects get approved in that kind of area. We have actually as well been careful around how we use our funding to help the grant funding we get to help support some of these projects coming through. So we have used some share prosperity within year to help develop proposals and make sure that we take advantage of every opportunity to bring elements such as the fantastic events such as the Eisteddfod, Tour de France and International Enduro. So those kind of elements are kind of planned in. So we use other grant funding to realise other amazing opportunities. So we're constantly kind of recycling grant funding and trying to use one pot to access another pot, combining pots together, and it's an ongoing kind of challenge to try and work in that environment and trying to not impact our own base budgets too much in the council, but actually use our grant funding wisely.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, this is a good news story, really, isn't it? Because hopefully these events are going to bring revenue and income into the county, which is going to help communities sort of stand on their own 2 feet, which hopefully alleviates the pressure a little bit from the local authority. So that's good news. So just wondering on there then, a question for Councillor Jake about the local development plan. And I'm aware that we've got the cross county development plan going on as well, and how things are progressing with that for the county, because that also impacts on future development and the economy going forward.
Yes, as members will know, the drop dead date, which is the statutory end date of the plan, is March, the end of March this year. But that won't indicate, that will not frustrate the ability of the council to continue to use the plan as a material planning consideration as we go forward. So we won't see, as we've had in the past under a different regulatory regime, an opening of the floodgates of development in inappropriate places. The local development plan that exists will simply carry on as material consideration until we do get a replacement. The replacement plan has been delayed for a number of reasons, one of which is the seeking of a Gypsy and Traveller site in North Powys around the Welsh Pool area, which we either need to approve by way of a planning application or allocate a site in the development plan. And anyone that follows the press will know that we've been out for a consultation on that, which has attracted a lot of interest, and that we need to go through a proper due process of finding that site so as not to get that muddle up in the development plan replacement itself. But also, we've been very conscious of the proposals for a new national park in the northeast of Wales, involving a chunk of Powys. And one of the concerns that we had, and as you know, we were out to consultation, or that there is a final consultation on that at the moment, and we propose to once again object to that. One of the reasons for the objection, of course, is that the creation of a new national park planning authority would trigger an automatic review of the local development plan that we are replacing the plan with at the moment. So that's caused some consternation to us, because of course we've invested substantial amounts of money there, and to have a review triggered once we got a replacement in place would be somewhat wasteful. So we have readjusted. That will go forward, but I am conscious that we probably due a briefing for members on where we are exactly with that plan, and I'll get that sorted, Councillor Angela. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, because again, that has a potential to impact on the economy of Powys and housing. We've just heard from Matthew about the Housing General Fund, but obviously there are issues there for us, and there are still the ongoing issues of phosphates and the protection of our rivers, etc., and all of that is linked together. Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Jake. I see you nodding away there. So members of the committee, any further questions on economy and climate?
Chair, if I may I answer a question that wasn't sort of directly put, but I suppose it goes to the point that Councillor Shan was making, and which is to say that economy and climate members may know that economy and climate had its own sort of service redesigned in previous years, and so that's why there are no savings, because that work has already taken place. I also just wanted to say, having assumed the portfolio on the 1st of October, I've been really impressed by the team's work, and it's fair to say that they are working very, very hard on lots of different fronts, and looking forward to being able to share some of that news of some of the projects that are being worked on in the coming months as well.
Lovely, thank you for that, Councillor Gillane. Yes, Councillor Jackie, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yes,
comment there.
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. And just to say that the economy and climate does include the work that comes under the Cabinet member for Greener Powys as well, which I cover. And the reason that you're not seeing anything in here about the climate is that we do not put that in the FRM. So any of those costs, those allocated costs to reducing our carbon emissions, are either brought in via grants or other means. So just in case anybody thinks that we've forgotten the climate, we haven't. It's very much on our agenda. It just doesn't appear in the FRM. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackie. Okay, I've got no member hands up, so we'll move on to the next section of the slides, and that's community wellbeing. So this is Councillor Rafe Devlin. Apologies, Rafe, calling you in too soon.
No problem at all. Thank you, Chair. So as you said, this is community wellbeing, and I've got Nina Davis and Jenny Ashton here with us today for support if needed. And members will be aware that community wellbeing includes our leisure centres, our libraries, our museums, art galleries, archives and Sport Powys. And as you can see on the slide, the base budget for this year was 2,555,000. We have throughout the year faced base pressures of 76,000 for inflationary pressures and service pressures of 6,000. There are no planned savings for this year. You will see on page 103 of the pack that the savings over the 5-year period have been profiled to begin in 2027-28, and so the service is not required to meet any savings for this coming year. And so that means that the budget request for the coming year is 2,637,000, which represents a 3.2% increase. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, members of the committee, any questions? Councillor Pete Lewington.
Thanks, Chair. I'm sorry that this may not be a question for Councillor Rafe. It's more of an overarching one that's just sort of like pinged into my mind. I've seen the inflationary pressures there on virtually all the slides that we've seen so far compared to this year's budget. And I guess roughly just looking at that slide there, it looks like that's about 3% of the 2.5 million. What's just confusing me slightly is if when we did the budgets last year, we put in a figure for inflationary pressures, why are we seeing inflationary pressures again on that slide, if that makes sense? And therefore, is that also going to be a risk going forwards about more inflationary pressures than what we budgeted for? Sorry, am I rambling a bit there? I don't know.
No, I think you make sense there, and I can see
Thank you.
Councillor Jake has got his hand up. So
Yeah, so what we're talking about is unavoidable inflationary pressures, which each service area will see, which are non-service specific. So with planning, we saw IDOCs, which was a service specific pressure. So we're really talking about pay and other inflationary costs, which of course go up every year. Some of which gets factored into the budget, but all of which have to be met. So as we look forward to our 5-year plan, the plan that we've said that ideally those pressures will be met within the service through savings themselves. So pay rises this year, next year, and so forth going forward. We at the moment are in the midst of a pay negotiation nationally with the unions to settle for the current year. So, Councillor Pete, I'm afraid these inflationary pressures occur every year.
Yes, if I may, Chair.
yes, please do, Pete. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Leader. So I guess I was just trying to get in my mind's eye is if I've done a budget of 100, say, I would assume inflation of 3% across the board. So first of all, what I was trying to tease out is have we done that 100? And if I put in say 3%, is that inflationary pressure that's now in there saying, well, actually, inflation was 5% on some of these costs?
I'll happily let Jane come in, but my understanding is what we've said is that the service areas need to meet their staffed costs pressures, therefore inflationary pressures within the service. Sorry, Jane.
Yeah, please come in, Jane.
Thank you. So if I give you some sort of general principles, so you're absolutely right, inflation does impact on everybody annually at the moment, and those levels are still higher than what we've seen historically for a little while. So those pressures do go up every year. Sometimes we would estimate those pressures, but if we see in reality that those pressures are slightly higher in a particular year, then we may well have to realign the budget in the following year to make sure that we can cover past inflationary pressures, but also then an estimate for future ones. So I think that was probably the element that Councillor Pete was asking about most specifically.
Yeah. Thank you, Jane.
So linked to that then, if I could ask, so we're talking about inflationary pressures as in linked to staffing cost, but what about those pressures, for example, the unexpected fuel costs? So we saw this impacting on leisure centres in previous years because of their high fuel costs, but given the volatility of the world and things happening on that are outside of our control, do we factor in something there that should some other big drama happen beyond Powis's borders, and how do we mitigate that?
Shall I come in, Chair?
Yes, please do.
So when we look at inflationary pressures across the organisation, we look at them at an individual element or purchase or whatever. So we would look at pay, we would look at contractual uplifts, we would look at energy costs being a big one that we've seen for quite a few years now. So we do look at those individual elements, and we would allocate different levels of inflation based on what we're actually seeing coming through. Now, some of that is mitigated by having contracts in place. So for our energy costs, for example, which would be quite a big cost across the organisation, we would be looking for contracts that give us a level of assurance, but also give us the best deals around those. So some of those will be fixed over periods of time and so on. And we do work collaboratively with other local authorities across Wales and at a national level for some of those big ticket items as well. So yes, we factor it in for each individual element.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you for that. So we're talking here under community wellbeing, as you said, leisure, libraries, etc. Those, I suppose, could say softer services, but that deliver really well for our residents in terms of keeping them healthy and happy. So our library service, there's been a lot of reconfiguring of that and moving into co-location. Are there further plans for that, or are there future changes that could be coming to help meet the pressures within this area? Councillor Rafe.
So, as explained on page 103 of the pack, the service pressures in community wellbeing will be met by an increase in income through the surplus share associated with the Freedom Leisure contract, which this year has come into a cumulative surplus position. And contractually, that will see 50% of the surplus share generated shared with the council. And that is going to help the service meet those saving pressures moving forward. So co-location in terms of all of community wellbeing will not be driven by pressures, it will be driven by opportunity and where that opportunity best suits the needs of communities. So we are always open to suggestions, and we're always looking at the opportunities that exist for co-location where they will represent an improvement to provision. And so, as you all know, Councillor, we have discussed ourselves about potential opportunity that exists in your ward, and that's being worked through. And these will be carefully considered, as I said, to ensure that any co-location project sees an improvement to provision for residents.
Thank you, Councillor Rafe. Councillor Gary, you've got some questions. Thank you, Councillor Rafe.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Rafe. I guess looking at this year's budget, don't have any concerns, or even over the next year or two for your portfolio, as it were, but looking a bit further ahead, there are some significant projected increases in cost reductions, and I guess it's just our sort of due diligence to question you a little bit over those steep rises that you're potentially forecasting in 28, 29, is it? And whether you want to comment directly on those or just give us some reassurance that that's planned and in the pipeline for specific reasons, or obviously in some departments we see it evened out across the 5 years, that's fine. You've got a bit of breathing space for a year or two within your sort of cost reductions and pressures, if you like. But I see that then doubling, tripling in those later years of the medium term. Yes,
of course. Chair, do you mind if I come back in?
Yeah, please do, Councillor Rafe,
question.
Yes.
And I can provide you some with some reassurance there. So these are not cost reductions. They're not reductions to service provision. As I just mentioned, they will be met through increased income as part of the contract that exists between the council and Freedom Leisure, and through the surplus share mechanism. However, that does rely on that surplus share being generated. As we know, the contract is run commercially, and so the size of that surplus share will depend on how successful that contract performs. A responsibility that is shared between the contractor and ourselves. It relies on investment, continual improvements to the service, and maintenance of standards, of which we're committed to do. So that is our intention, that our pressures that we as a service are obliged to meet in terms of providing savings are met through additional income. I'm very confident that that can be done, providing the investment that's required to ensure the contract continues to perform commercially are delivered. But of course, there is some risk associated with that, and you will see that there is within the description on page 103, in addition to the surplus share, there is and service redesign, because if those savings cannot be met through additional income, then it could mean that service redesign may be required to meet them, because ultimately those savings need to be met to contribute to the wider financial sustainability of the council. However, we're confident that we can do that. That's the approach we're taking moving forward.
Great, thanks, Councillor Rafe.
Thanks.
So in that, Councillor Rafe, in talking about ensuring that sort of viability going forward for those contracts, are you working closely with Freedom Leisure in terms of their delivery? Because I suppose it's a bit chicken and egg, isn't it, for a service like that, delivering what residents want and residents buying in and supporting that service?
Yes, absolutely. We work extremely closely with our partner. We have regular contract monitoring meetings. We meet quarterly to go through the performance, both commercial and in terms of the quality of provision delivered for residents, and how that is received by communities as well. And overall, it's extremely positive, as we know. And I understand that some of those reports are shared with you and your committee.
Indeed.
So I can assure you that we do work extremely closely with them, and we do ensure that there are mechanisms in place for residents to engage with our partner in reporting any concerns that they have or any requests for improvements. And as I said, overall, that's extremely successful. It is worth noting that as part of this budget, we have been able to do some really good things with our as part of the partnership. And that comes in the form of fees and charges, which the period of which runs from January to the end of December, rather than the financial year. And so I'm very pleased to inform you, Chair, and your committee that from the 1st of January, we have been able to freeze some fees and charges within our leisure centres. They include the cost of children's swimming lessons in light of removal of swimming from the national curriculum. We want to ensure that every child has the opportunity to learn the life skill of swimming. And so from the 1st of January, swimming lessons have not increased in price from last year, and they won't for the forthcoming 12 months. We've also been able to freeze the cost of hiring facilities for community clubs and other organisations. That would include swimming pools, sports halls, outdoor facilities, and the like. And that's to ensure that all residents of all demographics and backgrounds can access the opportunity to take part in physical activity.
Well, that's some good news in there, Councillor Rafe. Thank you very much for that. And whilst it's obviously a challenging portfolio going forward, I think you're in a much stronger place. It certainly sounds like we're in a much stronger place than perhaps we were a couple of years ago. So that's to be congratulated on that.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, any further questions there for Councillor Rafe? No? Okay, thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Peter James. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. It's really to do with more senior members of our communities with the warm hubs. I'm just interested to know, are they still sort of running to the same amount as we started originally? And are the costs going up to those hubs with increased heating and different charges of hosting the hub as well?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Yes, of course, the warm hubs are still operating. They are funded through grant funding where that provision is outside of where it's not delivered directly by the authority. For example, in community facilities. We have made significant improvements to the online system where those warm hubs can be accessed in terms of their details, contact details and locations, etc., so that residents can easily see where those warm hubs exist. And if it would be of help, I can point you in the right direction of where all that information is held. But they're very warmly received, if you pardon the pun, by residents, and we'll continue to provide them where we can.
Thank you.
I think, Councillor Rafe, they are on the cost of living hub. There's another link there. There's I love a hub page, and we do have quite a few of them now on the council
we do
website,
Thanks.
don't we? Ellen, you would like to come in there?
Yeah, I just want to add a few stats around that. It was something we looked into a couple of weeks ago. So just to do a comparison from last year. So in terms of the hits to the website around the warm spaces in Q3 in 2024, we had 181. And in Q3 in 2005, we had 1,106.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of that is to do with the advertising of that, isn't it? There's been a lot of social media and in the press to let people know that they're out there, hasn't there? So that shows, well, quite a tremendous growth, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. So, Councillor Peter, I hope that gives you some reassurance. Yeah. Okay, members, no further questions. Thank you for that, Ellen. So we'll move on to the next section, which is the corporate services. So, Councillor Jake, are you leading on this one?
Well, I don't know whether I am or I'm fighting Councillor David for it. So I'm happy to take us through.
Okay, yeah, that's fine by me.
I'm just waiting for Councillor David to react.
I'm happy for you to take us through it, leader, but at the same time, there are a number of elements here and there are a lot of portfolio holders that have the detail around it, or heads of service. I'd be happy to do the finance elements, but obviously you've got digital, people, business intelligence, and legal in there.
I mean, we've got
Thank you, Councillor David. That's exactly what I was going to suggest. Yes, yes, that's exactly what I was going to. Yeah.
What I'd say, I'll pick up my portfolio, which is finance, obviously, and then as we go down the list there, where we've got the service pressures, we can actually, each portfolio holder can pick up the items that are relevant to their portfolio and bring in the savings, which are detailed below it as well. How's that sound?
Sense. That sounds good. Thank you, David.
Okay, then, Chair. So finance, the base budget is just over £7 million. We've got pay award pressures and service pressures listed in there, and £212,000 in savings. So that actually equates to an increase in the budget of 4.7%. With regard to the pressures, there are two. The insurance tender premium may be more than budgeted. I don't know. I don't think we've got a detail there yet, but I wouldn't have thought it'd be more than what we've actually forecast there. And the money advice service is currently, two of the offices are currently funded from grant income, and we're actually going to baseline that because it's proved to be incredibly valuable to our residents, and it's seen as a major success at the moment. So those are the two pressures within finance. As far as the savings are concerned, I can just get this onto my screen. The first one is service redesign and transformation. As you'll be aware, there's a major new finance system being introduced. So that's going to transform the way we actually deliver certain functions within income and awards, etc. Then we've got the use of grants and income opportunities, £50,000. Fees on merchant fee contract renewal, that's expected to reduce the charges. And the insurance excess budget level, that could be reduced as there's a reserve level held and provisions are in place on that. So those are the details around the finance portfolio, Chair.
Okay, so I'll just ask the committee, anybody got any questions there before we move on? Okay, I can see Councillor Richard Church has got his camera on, so were you hoping to come in next, Councillor Richard?
Thank you, yes. Thank you. We've gone back to the previous page. Yes. I shall ask Clive Pinney to come in and support me where appropriate on these. The contribution to the HM coroner service, as I understand it, an unavoidable cost. And then we see there lines relating to our election staff, and our election staff do a very small team, do a tremendous job, and it seems to be forever busy for them with elections just about most years, and a lot of work to do on updating the register and implementing changes as they occur in electoral law. So I've really got nothing more to say on those items.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions there for Councillor Richard? Nope, got no hands up. So who would like to take those? Is it Councillor Rafe next? Your camera's come on. No, Jane. No. I'm not sure who's taking the next line for us. People services, isn't it?
People services, that wouldn't be myself. Sorry,
No,
Chair.
so digital. It's digital on the list, isn't it?
Yes, okay. I'm more than happy to come in for digital. And members will see that the digital budget is plan to reduce by 1.6%, which is quite significant. But may I assure members that there is no need to be alarmed. You'll see on page 104 how the savings have been profiled over the 5-year period. And we were asked, where possible, to bring those savings forward to reach the best form of a balanced budget for this year as we could. And in digital, we were able to do that. So the majority of the savings, I believe all of them actually, are occurring this coming year and in 2027-28, which then will see the digital service meet its saving target for the 5-year period by the end of that year. So they have been brought forward, which has seen a significant amount of savings be planned to be realised for next year. And the detail of those are included on the slides. They include a service redesign of 200,000, which will see which will be realised by some changes to the staffing structure, albeit, and again some reassurance for members here, that will not see the numbers of current staff reduced. That is about looking at our vacancies that we have and by funding some of our staff costs through some external grant income that we hope to receive. There are some other savings associated with optimizing license allocation of 33,000. This is about making sure that staff across the council have access to the license software that they require, but only that they require, and that we're not paying for additional licenses that we do not need. 30,000 associated with asset management and device consolidation, and that is about making sure that the devices we purchase stay in service for as long as possible, so that we don't replace devices prematurely, and that we extend the life of technology for as long as we can. And of course, there are environmental benefits to that as well, in addition to the cost benefits. And this program has been running over the past 4 or 5 years, actually, and it's delivered considerable savings for the council and will continue to do so. And then there is also a pay award inflation reduction due to those staffing changes. Just another more broader update on where we are in digital. Some very exciting work is ongoing, and the team are doing a fantastic job in it. We are just about to publish our new digital strategy, which will run for the period 2026 to 2031, which includes a really new and exciting vision for digital services in the council. And to sit alongside that will be a new digital transformation program, of which we've heard some officers and members mention previously in the meeting about where that will be focused, which will be aligned to the new priorities of the council moving forward for the forthcoming years. Happy to take any questions.
Okay. Members, over to you. Any questions there? Okay. So one question, Rafe, I suppose it does apply to all departments. When we have a service review or sort of restructuring, do we do a review of that to check that the impacts of that were sort of reasonable and as expected? So each time we make a change, do we review back?
Yes, I'm absolutely sure that we do. I can confirm that, but I would like to bring in Jane Thomas just to provide some further detail on that from a corporate side. Thank you.
Chair. So yeah, every time we look at redesigning any service, we would look at what's happened in the past, what we expect to happen in the future. But I think in line with Sustainable Paris and having to regularly review what we're doing and the processes that we follow, it is a continual process. So new technologies come in infinitely at the moment, don't we? We see lots of opportunities there from a digital perspective. So we're always keeping our eye on those, and then we can redesign our services to make them as efficient as possible, but also to provide the council with the support that it needs from corporate services, and that's absolutely critical to that frontline delivery of services as well. But yeah, constant review.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. Okay, committee members, again, over to you. Any questions? No. Okay, so we move on to legal, I think is the next line here.
No, you did legal with Councillor Richard, did legal, Chair. But I'll pick up now business intelligence and people services. And just looking at the service pressures there, I'm hoping that members might find some good news in here, taking business intelligence first. You'll see an additional cost there of additional member support. At the moment, we have one member of staff supplying support and services to 68 councillors. And we recognise that by investing in that further, we think that we will help councillors provide a better service to members of the public that they serve in their wards. And therefore, we've suggested an additional financial allocation to that area. Equally, in terms of people services, you'll see the line there with 63,000 against it. And that is direct additional support to support schools around some of the HR issues they face. One of the concerns that is often raised is that not enough support is provided by Powys Council directly to support governors with difficult transitions that they may have with staff exiting from school settings, and this support there is directly trying to provide help and support with that. And the other cost area around people services is simply the additional resource required through the recommissioning of the payroll systems that we have in place. Unfortunately, you'd like to think when you went out to replace systems, they cost less. Invariably, that's not the case, and this is just a direct cost associated with that. James, can you just take us to the savings so I can just I can compensate for that. So, in terms of the business intelligence area, that service area has been asked and is absorbing inflation across all of its contracts. We talked about inflationary pressures. This is one of those areas in contracts that were highlighted, and we're simply doing that there. There's a whole series of things within people services where we're increasing fees, DBS. Fee increases are to external suppliers. As you know, we provide this service to a range of local authorities across Wales, and this is one of those areas where we have to pass on inflationary costs. And again, you'll see that in terms of the DBS digital identification further on, those cost pressures passed on to clients. There is an area of £10,000, just while I'm there on the line below, direct reduction in expenditure on maintenance and occupational health. We've got a number of areas where we are adjusting the actual cost recovery so that there isn't a subsidy provided by people services into those areas where there is a recharge made. So that's cost recovery. And these are areas where it has been deemed legitimate that we're not just chasing inflationary rises to customers through the council. These are separate service cost areas. And you will see also some service redesign that is taking place. And as we've said there, that's £33,000 that is there. And as we've said, when we have service redesign, that is looking at staffing, but we never give precise details here. But rest assured, as we go forward, we do need to look at our staffing resource.
Okay, I think the service redesign was 41, wasn't it? But anyway.
Sorry, yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's 41,000. I didn't give a figure. You can read it as well as I can. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem. I was just interested in the vehicle maintenance. What would that be?
Right, I'm going to have to bring Paul. I see Paul is in the meeting. I think Paul is probably best there, but that will be direct costs associated with the schemes that we provide as a council, probably around leasing, but I don't know. Paul, can I bring you in, please?
Yeah. Thanks, leader, and thanks, chair. That's an unusual one in that we found out one of our members of staff who delivers OD training around the county used to have access to a council van. So that paid for the small vans to take off flip charts and things around the county. With the move to more kind of online training and a new member of staff just using his personal car, we now just cover that through car allowance. So we don't need 4K for a van anymore. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. So it's lots of little things that can, collectively make a big difference. But just
Yeah.
interested in the DBS and the external suppliers we're charging the cost. But there has been issues in the past with the speed of DBS. I understand there was some issues in getting the clearance through the police. Has that been cleared up? That backlog been cleared up?
I'm happy to answer that if you want, or albeit Paul can. So yes, there were some issues that we escalated to the Chief Inspector and to the Crime Commissioner direct. So both Paul and I escalated that through our various routes, if you like, officers and elected representatives, and we did eventually get a resolution on that. It did take some time, and that service, the delays were within the police service, and those have largely been delays chased out of the system. But we are ever vigilant and have regular meetings with those areas to ensure that we continue to provide a good service for others.
Okay, good. Because that's a really good example, isn't it, of how one thing impacts on other services, because you can't get your staff in before they've been, or your governors indeed, before they've had their DBS checks, and potentially that income from external people isn't coming in if there's those delays. So that's good to know that again, you're working with those outside agencies, the police force, etc., to iron out problems. So over to the committee again. Please, members, bring forward your questions, your challenge here for the officers. Councillor Shan.
Thank you, Chair. And this is a question really for everybody, for all heads of service and portfolio holders. Councillor Jacobs just highlighted in what he was saying there the importance that having the right number of staff available to perform services is. And obviously he set out the measures that particular team are taking to ensure that. We know that some of those services, especially these ones in corporate services, they support, they're kind of invisible, aren't they, a lot of them, and they support councillors and frontline services to be able to do their jobs well. But we do have some frontline services where this question is really pertinent as well, who are here today. So my question is really, the MTFS lists a set of key risks in its final pages, and under the budget delivery risks, it mentions that having sufficient capacity and resource to deliver and implement change projects is essential to deliver the savings. So I was just wondering how heads of service can assure us that the staff and the financial resource that they have can deliver their transformation proposals, and what measures to sustain and ensure that capacity are underway.
I'm happy to answer that, Chair, if you wish.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
Yeah, so what I indicated earlier, that there are some areas of the council where we actually lead the way, and workforce planning is one of those. We've had a spotlight shined on the work that we've done in Powys here, and gone and spoken at conferences nationally to demonstrate what we're doing. So every year the team here works with heads of service and service managers to put forward a workforce plan to ensure that we have the right people properly trained in the right place at the right time with the right resource, etc., around them. And we're always planning ahead for the next 12 months. So I've seen the most recent draft of the paper in respect of the workforce plan looking forward, and it's integrated into the budget setting process. So the financial planning that we've talked about, and that is one of the things that we do on an exemplary basis here in Powys to ensure that we have all of this lined up, and that it isn't a surprise that we have the right people in the right place, properly trained to do things we do. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Jake. Can I ask a quick question, Chair? Is the workforce plan, when it's the final workforce plan, that's a public-facing document, is it? Residents can have a look at that if they want to, or is it internal only?
We do publish it. We consider it by cabinet, but I'm looking to Paul or Jane just to.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Yeah, we took a summary report to formal cabinet last year.
That's right.
I was going to informal cabinet CLT on the 3rd of February, and we'll be asking the leader if we'd like to take a kind of summary report against cabinet. But I presume that'll be the plan, Leader. Thanks.
Yes, as I say, I've seen the draft, and I wish to share that. Obviously, the detail of which, rather than the strategy, so it sits within the people strategy. That is a public-facing document. The detail, obviously, we can't publish because it's people's jobs and livelihoods, and training needs, etc.
Okay, so just for my officers, just to let you know, I had a message from Councillor Chloe giving her apologies. She got a medical appointment, but she sent me through 3 questions that I think actually are relevant, and so I'm going to ask them on her behalf. And the first one, she's asking if there are any members of the councillor on the budget advisory panel, because we know you've been working cross-party behind the scenes there with that party, and she was wondering if we know what their thoughts on the proposed budget is. So I don't know if there are any members of that panel with us today, and if they have any feedback from that committee.
I'm one, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Gary.
There are a number, a really good, strong number, I think, on that sort of budget advisory group, and personal sort of reference here, I suppose. I think we all welcome it. It is a chance to engage early as individuals or with a group hat on, if you like, as well, and relating back to our scrutiny positions and roles as well. So I think it's really positive. I think we get that more detailed chance to ask the questions, to delve into things in a pretty informal setting with officers, councillors, portfolio holders, all in the same sort of virtual room, if you like. I guess it's a newish process, so as expected, I'm sure we can improve things if it carries on, and I would like to think personally that sort of process does carry on from year to year, because it's such an important thing. And if we don't have the opportunity to be involved in it, if we want to, when you come to these sorts of sessions, you receive a 300-page report, and it's really hard to tease out the detail. And I fully appreciate that that's potentially frustrating for our residents out there that might be looking in and listening in, because they want to also try and see that. But it's nigh on impossible in 2.5 hours, isn't it, to look at 3 or 4 fairly large areas of the council's delivery in a scrutiny session and do it justice. So I think those budget sessions allow that. Obviously, they help build up to the papers that we see, and we've had some challenging conversations in them, as you'd expect. But what I see we get out of it is a clearer understanding. We can delve into some of the detail because they've been proportioning them up into sections, so we haven't met around the whole budget, or not properly. We meet around departments and whatever we could, working areas of the council. So you have that ability to do that deeper dive in one of those sessions. You do it, and then that one gets fed back into these papers. Then you do your next one. So yeah, really positive experience. I definitely hope they continue, and hopefully they've helped the officers get to the point of seeing these budget papers ahead of the budget setting meetings. Thank you.
Good, that's excellent to hear. So thank you. That's a really positive step, isn't it? And then the other thing she asks is, does the council currently have the necessary skills and knowledge to deliver on the savings? So she's with particular reference to the service redesign, and I know we've talked about that a lot. So I suppose she's just seeking the confidence that officers feel that they do have the support and the skills they need to ensure those are delivered. I think that's probably been answered during the course of the meeting, hasn't it? And I feel that was quite a positive outcome there. Councillor Gary.
Yeah, just on that one, we sort of pondered earlier. If you're running a private entity and you need to make savings in terms of redesigning your staff team, you just do it. And therefore it's a harsh implication, isn't it, of let's say in many cases staffing reductions. I think where we struggle a bit is if you simply just cut staff, your service gets put under extreme pressures in some cases, and you start to be able to not deliver your statutory functions. So there is that problem in just seeing it in a budget. We see a line of, let's say, in plain terms, staff reductions, but in some cases we're not going to meet it, and that's where we struggle a bit, because we could make staff redundant. Of course we could if we really had to, but in some cases we don't, because of the impact is so great either on statutory functions, or it's just we need more time to transition and things like that. So I think that was one of the challenges we had, that I think Chloe's sort of question relates around as well. And I guess when papers land in the external sphere, if you like, you see a line for service redesign, and you would all assume that creates some sort of staffing reorganisation. But when we don't deliver it in future reviews of budget, people get a bit frustrated. And well, you said you were going to save that and you haven't. So perhaps we just have to be very clear in our reports of the reasons why and the what if. So if we hadn't have not made that saving, these impacts would have been X, Y, Z, because that gives some of our residents that bit more clarity and understanding.
Yeah. And I can see Jane has got her hand up there. So Jane.
Just to add, only a small point, but in terms of transformation, having the resources available to help deliver across the organisation around transforming our services, redesign, digital interventions that can be used, having the resource available to deliver on those is fundamental too. But we do look at that across the organisation through a transformation budget that we hold. So we can look at what elements we can deliver on, but assess the benefit that we'll get from that investment up front, so that we can be clear that we're directing that quite, small resource to the areas that will give us the biggest impact as well. So we do manage that in a slightly different way, but that's across the whole organisation.
Lovely, lovely. So Chloe's third question actually leads me very beautifully into the next section that I wanted us to concentrate on, because this gave a lot of cause for discussion in the pre-meet, and that's about the council tax. And Chloe is asking, why was the council tax increase last year so high compared to this year when the costs have continued to increase? So she's talking about the council tax figure, and I can see Councillor Pete Lewington's got his hand up. So did you want to sort of come in on that point, Pete?
Hi, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I did have questions around affordability and fees and income. So if now's the right time, yeah, I wouldn't mind raising that to go with Councillor Chloe's. So yeah, I think for me, I echo similar comments there, which is in previous years, despite promises made, we have seen council tax increases far in excess of 5%, which obviously has a cumulative effect and disproportionately impacts the most vulnerable groups. So I think what I was trying to ask was two questions, really, if I may. The first was around fees and charges. And again, I think it's quite important because in 2.8 of the portfolio holders report, he does highlight the continuing cost of living challenge for our residents. So first question around fees and charges, if I may, was how have the income assumptions from increased fees and charges been tested for realism? Especially in relation to those on lower incomes who may have affordability issues, which could lead to suppressed demand or increased inequality. And my second question was around council tax itself, and I wondered what evidence there actually is, or what evidence was used to assess the affordability of a 4.9% council tax increase for our residents. In essence, have we tested, can people afford it? And as I say, how has the cumulative effect of all these successive council tax increases been factored into our financial planning and risk assessment? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pete. So who would like to pick on those comments on council tax? Councillor David.
Thank you, Chair. The first thing I'd like to say is that no administration wants to increase council tax, but unfortunately, we really do need to look at the challenge that we're faced with. The reality of the situation, if we take this year as an example, after receiving the funding we did from Welsh Government, we were still left with a budget gap of approximately £19 million. Now, at the end of the day, we have to balance a budget, so we had to cover that £19 million, and there were a number of ways we could have done that. The first would have been to say, right, we remain, leave everything as it is, and we simply increase council tax by 19% roughly, and obviously that would have balanced the budget. But that said, that's totally unacceptable. Nobody's going to could go out there and say to our residents, we're going to increase your council tax by 19% so we can protect the services as is. So we had to get a balance there. So what we did, we used the sustainable powers principles, and they are beginning to kick in and work very well at the moment. And we managed to discover £12 million worth of savings through service redesign, which we've already discussed, increases in fees and charges, which is full cost recovery plus inflation, which is a generalized term anyway, and that would apply to any industry. And that did bring us to a position after making £12 million worth of savings, where we still had a gap of about £7 million. Now, 2 million of that was made up with a change in the council tax base. That's because the extra properties have been built in the county, etc. It's the extra income coming in from additional properties. And then we had to find another £5 million, which we decided would be best applied to the 4.9% increase in council tax. Had we not done that, the position we'd have found ourselves in would have been that we'd have to find in all probability, either £5 million worth of more savings, or reduced proposed spending within the service areas by £5 million, which might have meant that it'd be £2 million less going into education, £3 million less going into adult social care, and that would have created enormous problems for vulnerable residents. So it's a balancing act of looking at what the loss of services, valuable services, would have done to our residents' well-being, and the increase in the council tax. And when we look at the £12 million savings that we proposed in this budget, if you look very closely at those, they're not really impacting frontline services in a major way. But what I can assure you, councillors, is that had we applied another £5 million worth of savings, you'd have been looking at some serious cuts in services. And there would have been cuts that would have had serious consequences for our residents. You'd have seen cuts in waste and recycling. You'd have seen cuts in highways. You'd have seen further cuts, significant cuts in education. You see the cuts in adult social care, right across the boards. And we're actually talking about cuts in the frontline delivery of these services, which would have been a major impact. So we've had to balance this with the actual 4.9% increase and the impact of significant service cuts to residents. The one thing I would add is when we talk about affordability, because of the generous package that we apply, for example, a council tax reduction scheme, I think that's going to be worth about 12 or 13 million pound this year as a result of what's already in the RSG, which comes from Welsh Government. Only about 47% of our residents will pay full council tax. 53% of our residents will be claiming some form of exemption or other. So that mitigates to an extent the impact of the full council tax on our residents. And that would apply to previous years as well. But the important point to remember is we've made, I think, over the last, I haven't got the exact figure, roughly over the last 10 years, about £140 million worth of savings. Now, if we hadn't made those savings, how were we going to balance our budget? In all probability, to be looking at even more significant council tax increases, or even more significant service cuts to the services we do deliver to our residents. So that's the dilemma we find ourselves in. But I'm comfortable with this budget because the £12 million worth of savings don't directly affect the service delivery for our residents. And the 4.9% council tax increase, whereas, yes, it is significant, but it is mitigated to a very large extent by the fact that 53% of our residents will receive some sort of help with regard to the payment of that council tax. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Councillor Peter, your hand is still up. Did you want to come back there?
Yeah, if I may, Chair. Thank you, portfolio holder, for that explanation. I sort of felt though it was what I'll probably call a balance in the books explanation, and I didn't get to hear any evidence of the work that's been done, if any has been done, to ensure our residents can afford this, apart from placing reliance on the council tax reduction scheme. which, as I think it points out in the paper, we now have, I think, 53% of residents receiving some support with their council tax. So I guess if we are sort of relying on the council tax reduction scheme to address this affordability and inequality issue, that perhaps leads us to another risk, which is the risk around that 53% increasing. And obviously, if that increases, I guess that then has a further detrimental impact on the bottom line on our budget. So, how are we looking to address that risk?
Well, it won't necessarily increase. That'll depend on a lot of the economic KPIs in the future. There's some significant significant improvements in inflation, for example. I know it did drop to 3.2% in December. It's gone back up to 3.4%, so that's concerning. But I think the long-term forecasts are that it will come back down to about 2% by midsummer. Now, if that's the case, that's going to obviously going to benefit our residents as far as the cost of living crisis is concerned. Again, there's expectation that interest rates will drop by another 2.25, to 2.25 percentage points twice in the coming 12 months. Now that's going to have a significant impact with regard to mortgage costs, etc., for our residents. So as far as the cost of living crisis is concerned going forward, there are signs that things are going to improve. We don't know what future settlements from Welsh governments are going to be. First of all, we don't know who the government's going to be, but secondly, as it stands, we've just had a 1-year settlement. So we can't plan long term because we don't know. We've based it on a 1% increase. Potentially that could be greater, which might mean that we'll have to find less savings in future. But the only alternative, and this is the harsh reality of things, the only alternative to not applying a council tax when you've got a budget gap is to make savings in our expenditure. And to do that, if you want to reduce that council tax level that's actually incorporated into bridging that gap, then you're going to have to cut deeper and deeper and deeper into the services we deliver. And what I'd like to fully understand is what our residents might say if we turned around and said, oh, right, we're going to reduce the council tax this year, but we're going to close your leisure centre, or we're going to reduce your council tax this year, and we're not going to apply adult social care to Mrs. Jones living at number 5, wherever. This is the harsh reality of things, and that's what we have to accept. We have to balance a budget. We've got statutory duty to balance a budget. And by balancing this budget, it ensures that we don't face a potential S114 situation in the future, because the consequences of that would be far more severe for our residents. And believe me, experience says from other councils that had to go through that council tax levels would be significantly higher than what we've been setting. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just ask, Councillor David, you said that of the 53% of residents who get a reduced rate, that's funded through a grant from Welsh Government. Does that cover the difference?
No, it doesn't cover it all, Chair. I think there's about £8 to £9 million in the RSG for it. Anything above that, we have to contribute ourselves.
Okay. And do we have any idea, or is there any way we can project what the levels of underpayment or non-payment are? So do we know now how many don't pay? I mean, and do we chase non-payment? And do we anticipate any increase in that?
Every authority, I don't think there's any authority actually has 100% collection rate. I think for Powys, 24-25 was about 98%. 25-26 is looking as it might be slightly below that or on a par with that. And so that's difficult to anticipate, obviously, but the support is there.
And we do sort of make all efforts to sort of chase that non-payment.
Yes, indeed. And I think, we've got other mitigating measures in place as well. We've got a first-class monetary advice service who give enormous help to our residents if they are struggling to pay bills, not just council tax, but other bills as well.
Thank you, David. Liz, good morning, Liz. Over to you. You've got your hand up.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. It's a question for Councillor Thomas and maybe the Jane Thomas. I wondered I can see that one of the cost pressures has been the real living wage. I just wondered, do we have any idea about how many people are going to benefit from that? Because it does sort of obviously have an impact on, what people can afford, the Powys economy, and, bringing people out of that sort of poverty and challenging the cost of living crisis.
I don't have an exact figure for Powys on the real living wage, Liz. Jane, do you have any idea what that might be?
I don't have actual numbers. They'd be significant in terms of those particularly working in social care. So those providing home care. The commitment from Welsh Government is around making sure that those employees can get the real living wage, and obviously we have to fund that within the contracts that we have with those external providers around domiciliary care, but also residential care as well with our care homes. So there would be a significant number of employees that would benefit from that, but they don't work within the council. Most of those are external to the council, where obviously within the council we do make sure that we meet that level of pay in terms of the real living wage and minimum wage.
Thank you.
Okay, so members, I'm just going to give us a time check now. We're on 17 minutes past 12. We're due to finish at past. Pete, I can see you have got your hand up. I'll come to you now, but just to remind you, we've got to do our scrutiny recommendations and we've got our forward work programme. And I'm very aware we haven't heard yet from Councillor Carl or Councillor Bryan. So members, if you've got any questions, can we make them short and snappy now? And I'll go to Councillor Pete, unless anybody else puts their hand up to round us off. Thank you, Pete.
No, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I just wanted to finish off on the previous points with Councillor David, actually. So I do understand the points that Councillor David makes, and that there are difficult choices to be made. But my question actually was around what evidence had we used to assess affordability? And nowhere in Councillor David's answer did I hear that we had any evidence for that. So I have to assume that the answer therefore appears to be none. And really what we are reliant upon then is our council tax reduction scheme and a whole load of other external factors that Councillor David mentioned that may or may not happen. But I was just trying to understand if we had any evidence, and as I say, the answer appears to be no. So
no, that's not true, Councillor Lewington. I never said that. What I said to you was we had to balance the increase in council tax and the impact of that increase in council tax on residents against the loss of service to those residents, which in some cases could cost them far more than what they're paying in council tax, particularly those on a low income.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. So, Councillor Adrian, I think last questions. Oh,
no,
no,
thank you, Chair. Thorny issue of capital receipts. 10 million has been mentioned for 5 years, whatever. I don't think it was anywhere near achieved last year. How is it covered when it's not? And realistically, what do you think is going to be achieved this year, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adrian. Who's going to take that for us? Capital receipts. Jane, thank you.
Yeah, I can come in. I don't have all of the detail, but Councillor is right that we didn't achieve the full target figure of 10 million last year. We struggle to make that based on what property we're able to release across the council. But obviously capital receipts is a critical part of our capital strategy, because having that money, that cash available for investment into our capital projects enables us to really limit the impact on our revenue costs. So if we don't get those receipts in, then obviously we have to take out borrowing rather than using cash that may be available to us. So it is a critical part of our capital strategy. And if we are unable to raise receipts and we're unable to afford a significant level of additional borrowing, then clearly that will impact on our ability to be able to deliver on the investment plans that we have. And that could mean that things are not invested in as routinely as we would like. It could mean that we're having to delay some of our projects, particularly around school transformation and so on, because of that inability to deliver on those capital strategy plans that we have. So it is fundamental, but we do keep an eye on it. We are drawing in some receipts that we've had in the past to support the capital programme, but it is still a key tool in that capital investment box for us. So releasing properties that are costing us more than they're delivering in terms of delivering services or return for us is absolutely a fundamental part of Sustainable Powers and our capital programme going forward.
Okay, thank you. So it is difficult to achieve the 10 million. That's what you're saying. And you have to borrow more money. So is there a point where the interest rates go down? It's probably more sustainable to hang on to property, do you think? You're going to say no, I expect.
That's a question I would love to be able to answer, but where that would be, you know, we do keep an eye on the markets, we do reschedule our borrowing when rates come down and so on. So we are keeping a look on that constantly, but costs continue to rise too. You know, we're seeing our capital projects rise in cost as well. So again, it is that balancing act, and it is about choice and where we want that investment to be and where it gives us the biggest gain across the council.
Thank you.
James, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, just I think the last financial year, I don't think much more than 3 million was received, and sorry, about 2 million was received, and I think this year the forecast at the end of Q2 was that £3 million capital receipts was achievable, but that was obviously relies on the buyers out there and progressing the sales by the 31st of March, which is not always easy with both getting all parties involved to do that. We did have to defer based on the capital receipts we received to date. We did have to defer using capital receipts at the end of this financial year to fund capital spend into next year, which has slightly increased the cost of borrowing in this year, and we'll have to have a look going forward. We weren't in a position to build in the full £10 million per year until that had been achieved, so there isn't that level built in to fund the capital programme at this point in time. We'd like to increase the level of capital receipts that's built in to fund the capital programme, but that'll have to reflect on what we can actually achieve in the years. So that could either reduce the amount of borrowing and the impact on the revenue costs going forward.
Okay, Councillor Gary, got your hand up. We are now 23 minutes past, so we're on a bit of a race to the end now, but with you.
I'll try to be quick. My question was around the reserves. The report mentioned that, ambition not to use it in the next year's budget. Absolutely get that, but it does mention that there was a gap or a use of it in last year, dipping it below the 4% agreed minimum reserves and somewhere in the region of £50,000-ish needing to top it up. But what I couldn't see, sorry, it's probably in there, where does that £50,000 come from, and how does it come out of this year's existing, so the year we're in's budget, and it just gets topped up, so when we start next year there is that 4% in there, or is that an element of risk? And then just a quick question, is 4% still enough in this day and age of our overall budget as a risk reserve, or as a reserve, as it were?
Well, that 4% is a council policy. Council set that, so obviously if there's going to be any change to that, then full council will have to decide if they want to make that change. I think we're just below the 4%. Is it? I can't remember the exact figure now. It's in the report, but obviously we'll wait and see what the outcome of this financial year is, and in all probability we might be able to top that up to ensure it maintains the 4%. Jane's got a hand up.
Yeah, Jane.
Yeah, just in terms of the level of reserves that we hold more generally, councillors will be aware that each year when you consider the budget proposal, you take advice from myself as a 151 officer around whether the level of reserves that we're holding is appropriate to cover off the level of risk that we hold within the budget plan, but also is it sufficient to cater for any unexpected things that might happen too. So you will see my opinion in the budget reports there. 4% is low. It is, I would say, at the minimum level of acceptability. in terms of what we have, but in order to be able to maintain that type of level, being absolutely clear and robust in our budget planning is fundamental part of that, but also the way we monitor our budgets and can react if things change during the year is also a key element of that as well. So I would just note for everybody to have a look at the opinion in the latter sections of any budget report that gives you how that assessment has been considered by myself in saying whether those reserves are at an appropriate level.
Okay, thank you. Just for my own bit of clarity, there must be a mechanism somewhere that at the end of the current year we're in, we assess what our reserves level is, and it's below that 4%. Surely we've got to top it up to that 4%. If we're saying that's our absolute minimum, we've got to find that money from somewhere and put it in. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, members. I'm afraid we are going to sort of have to wind it up now a little bit. So we've heard really there about the challenges that we're facing here in balancing the books, but I think we've heard some really positive things within there as well. For me, particularly that the good work being done by the budget advisory panel, and hopefully that can carry on going forward, because the more people that can input and debate these matters, the better. I was pleased to be given those assurances that our portfolio holders and officers are considering the unexpected and the sort of linked and connected consequences of decisions made. And I was really pleased to hear that we're working very closely with departments working together and working with our outside agencies to make sure that we're all delivering as smoothly as we can for our residents. But we have got some recommendations, I think. Sorry, David, did you want to come in there at that point?
Yeah, just very briefly, Chair, just on the Budget Advisory Group. It's worked very well this year. Acknowledge what Councillor Gary said. And it is our intention to carry that on into future years. And we finished the round this year, but we're sending a questionnaire out to the existing members of the Budget Advisory Group, asking them what they thought of it all and what improvements they might like to see, etc., just to give that reassurance that we do intend to carry on with that.
That's really good news, I think, and I think that's an excellent idea to have a review of how it's gone for everybody. So yeah, thank you for that, Councillor David. Another bit of good news there. So some recommendations there, trying to pull out members from what you've said there. Gemma's been working hard in the background, picking up our comments. So we've got 3 suggested recommendations, and please, members of the committee, if you have anything you'd like to add, but I'll read out for you. It may not be in this actual wording, but you'll get the gist. So we're looking to say we'd like a clear statement of the assumed savings, the delivery status, as in delivered or not yet delivered or at risk, and the reasons for any variances. And that we'd like a short what if not delivered, so the impact if we don't deliver what we say we're going to do on operational and financial impacts of those savings if it's not achieved. And we're looking to say something on transformation resourcing for each proposal, so confirming how enabling capacity will be funded, whether via the corporate transformation budget or other sources. So along those lines, how are you thinking, members? Do you have other recommendations you'd like to add or change of wording there? Councillor Bryan.
I just written down that we got these proposed savings. I'm sure the financial members will find a way of that we can regularly monitor that the departments are making these savings.
So how we review them. So
Yeah.
you'd like some reassurance there on how these are reviewed going forward. Okay.
Well, regularly, not at the end of the year and just saying they haven't achieved them. And just a general comment, I was looking at it, that we only received 8 emails from Have You Say Powys on how we could do the budget. There's not many responses if we go in digital.
No, and we've talked about the consultations and how we deliver them and advertise them and how we try and engage the public in them before, haven't we? So that is a challenge as well, but yeah. So how about that arrangements be put in place to ensure regular monitoring of all the proposed savings, enabling members to track departmental progress in delivering those savings throughout the year? Would that meet, Brian?
That's a lovely posh way.
There we are. Councillor Adrian.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if it's the right time for a recommendation like this, but I am concerned about the level of grant funding for highways. and if that is lost, can the budget be reinstated through the normal process? Could that be a recommendation, or isn't that apt?
I'm not sure about that, because once the budget's set, it's set, isn't it? I suppose it can be realigned in the following year.
That's what I mean. But yes, because it does affect all services, but the grant that goes to highways benefits every other service, isn't it? Yeah. So it ought to be pro rata. If they lose the grant for highways, the highway shouldn't take all the sting. It should be kind of spread around. That would be my thought process, but maybe not a suitable recommendation for today. I'll leave it
we'll think about a wording for that, but it could be that that's in the reviewing, as in Brian's suggestion for a recommendation would be how we could track that.
Okay.
You're wanting to push how we fill that gap if it's not forthcoming, that finance. Yeah. Peter Lewington.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just going back to the savings bit, could we perhaps add something to identify which savings carry the highest risk of non-delivery? And for those savings, are there any alternative mitigations that exist?
So I'm guessing they would already be tracked, wouldn't they, in the heat maps? So do you want it more sort of prominently tracked somewhere?
Yeah, if possible, yeah.
Okay, and linked to a sort of impact assessment.
Yes. Yeah. Just to identify which are the ones that have got the highest risk of non-delivery. Yeah. Just make it a bit more prominent, I think.
Okay. So whether there's some way we could, yeah. Okay. Gemma's typing away in the background there. Okay, we'll come up with that. So how about the future savings reports identify which proposed savings carry the highest risk of non-delivery and set out alternative mitigations available for those high-risk items. With that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, members, if you're happy with that, we've got 5 recommendations. Gemma and I'll work on the wording, but on those themes. And the last item on our agenda is the...
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, yes,
can
Gemma,
I just
you
ask
need us to
committee?
vote.
Yes, please. If I could just have a show of hands to show agreement of those recommendations, please.
Apologies, Gemma, I always forget that bit. Yeah, so members, are you happy with those 5 recommendations? Yeah, all hands up. Lovely. Thank you. And then, so yes, item 7 is our forward work programme. You could see we've got the next 3 months there planned. So now that these items are in the public domain, we are really asking officers to make sure these papers come through in a timely manner, and we're not looking to see any changes to that agenda if possible, please. That's a plea to the officers. We know it's difficult, but once the work programme is published, it is anticipated that it should go ahead as planned. So thank you for that. And if members have a few minutes at the end, 5-10 minutes, we'll just have a quick review of the meeting. But other than that, I just want to thank everybody for their participation today. Some really good questions there, and thank officers and portfolio holders for joining us and for providing the answers to our questions. So thank you all very much, and have a good rest of your day. And if the committee would just stay online if possible. Thank you very much.
Chair, could I just give my apologies?